Neil Monaghan, musician, outdoorsman, cyclist, Christian.
I'm a traditionalist, purist of sorts. Music from Atlantic Canada, the Maritimes. I'm just working on a song about the days of the Prohibition, the rum running.
My first thought after spending a little time with Neil was, how can I learn to live more like him? Neil's early years were a confusing time for his family. While he seemed happy and healthy, he missed many of the early milestones. So from a very early age, Neil and the Monaghans were involved with a variety of social service agencies and special preschools.
By the time he was ready for kindergarten, they figured that he was, progressed enough that he could be mainstreamed. So he did go to regular school for grades, kindergarten up to grade 5, but during that time he had a modified program. He learned how to read quite early, like regular time frame for reading. So we were pretty hopeful that he still might catch up.
To say Neil didn't catch up is to shortchange him. He did progress, and he did learn. But he was moved to a special school in grade 5 and attended a special program in high school and college. But despite his academic limitations, he has many fond memories.
High school years was one of the best years, were the best years of my life. I was involved with so much. Choir and everything like that, the music program, the arts. I was no sports jock.
Neil's very confident and self-aware, even with respect to his disability and the labels he's been assigned.
Mild learning disability, attention deficit disorder, which probably affects a lot of school kids mostly. And I also heard it affects adults to adult attention deficit disorder. I studied up on the internet about it.
But when it comes to Neil, labels are irrelevant. He's his own person. He embraces life and is interested and passionate about many things.
He's really happy. He's a happy person. And he really enjoys his freedom. He somehow taught himself how to play guitar, so he has another network of friends and they also watch out for him. He goes to a bar, he doesn't drink, but he plays Celtic music, and there's a fellow who took him sort of under wing. And so he does his music, he's got his job, he does cutting lawns in the neighborhood. He calls it his landscape business.
And his
church group. So that's another social venue for him.
So as parents of a young man with a disability who very much has his own life, the struggle the Monaghans faced was not so much with Neil, but in confronting the paradox that every parent must face eventually.
He sort of seized his independence himself. We sort of had to decide
how much to rein him in for his own protection.
Which is still, and probably, it's an ongoing thing with us, that it's, how much freedom can you give him, and but on the flip side of that, I think that if you don't, everybody's living in fear, and that's really no way to live.
So when Neil was 23, Steve and Nancy started thinking long-term. If he was truly going to be his own man, he had to move out at some point in time. But they didn't know where to turn. They felt Neil's situation was unique, and they needed an individualized approach. So they invited Marlon Sherville of the Windsor-Essex Brokerage for personal supports to help them with some independent planning.
I wanted to find out what were the resources in the community for him. And I had heard, I don't know if it was how much truth there is, but for somebody like Neil who is somewhat higher functioning than the people who are in group homes, that it would be a really long wait for him to be in a group home. But anyway, Marlon came, and I remember sitting here and she was saying, we asked her what was available, you know, what could we do, and she said, anything you want.
Yes, that's what, yes.
So I was a bit taken aback.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? She says, well, and then she was outlining different scenarios that people had already started, and she mentioned one family bought a house for their child just around the corner from where they live, and I thought, oh, that'll be easy, buy a house.
Yeah, so we put that one on the back burner at that point for a while.
That was just laughable at the time.
At the time, yeah, we just couldn't
well,
see
sure,
that.
we'll
Yeah.
just buy a house.
When they thought about it, they felt they had 4 options. First, Neil could remain living at home, but they knew that was not in his best interests. Second, they could get on a waiting list for a placement in a group home. This could take years, and if and when Neil was ever placed, they were certain it would be too restrictive for him. Third, they could rent an apartment. While this could work, they were very disappointed in the quality of affordable apartments that were available. And renting forever offered no long-term security for Neil. So that left buying a home, and that's the option they chose. So Nancy and Steve purchased a small bungalow for Neil, a couple of blocks from their home, and renovated it over several months.
Well, here's my house on beautiful 730 Lincoln. It's a unique neighborhood. Mostly a multicultural neighborhood of mostly people from Middle Eastern countries. We're in the living room right now, and we have a lot more things than before. It's a lot more homey than what it used to look like. It's our stereo system. We have regular cable services. We have a little newt, a little fire belly newt, amphibious creature. He's in there somewhere. We have our coffee maker, our stove, our microwave, the fishing room, the outdoors room. We have all our fishing tackle.
I think the idea is to stretch it out, because the ODSP money is probably, hopefully it's never going to end in their lifetime. So unless they get a job, and if they get a job, of course, then hopefully they can pay the mortgage. But so yeah, the economics of it compared to renting just seemed to make more sense, because at the end, he will have a house that he can live in for the rest of his life.
To assist with the expenses and upkeep of the house, some families will find a tenant they trust. Neil has a roommate who is a friend from high school. He receives a very reasonable rental rate, and he's responsible for checking in on Neil occasionally. Even though Neil had no problems, had someone he liked to live with him, and was only a few blocks away, it was a difficult transition for Nancy.
One of the main things for me was getting a grip on the fear, like my own fear, because I thought there is no way that he is going to eat properly, that he's going to, you know, be clean and neat, and, you know, to go out in the community. So I had to really struggle with allowing him to be out there and in his own place. And you know, the first couple of nights, I didn't sleep. You know?
While it's a mother's job to worry, Neil gets along well. While it's probably true he doesn't eat as well as Nancy would like, it's one more choice that's his and gives him control over his life. Neil undoubtedly makes decisions that are different than what his parents would choose, but that's the point. It's his life.
Monday afternoon, I went out to eat at that new restaurant on Walker Road, the new Hooters. I don't just go there for the food, I go there for the hot broads.
And are they hot?
Ooh, yeah.
Neil comes and goes as he pleases on his bike. He's an avid cyclist 12 months of the year, rain or snow. He chose his own church, a church that his family has no affiliation with. Despite his parents' request to use the bus system, he'll ride his bike 34 kilometers round trip to various church events. He works part-time at the Windsor jail in the maintenance department. While he doesn't receive funding for individual support, he's very comfortable on his own and receives a lot of support from his friends and family. With fishing and bird watching, visiting his family and church group, playing music and cycling, there are not enough hours in the day for Neil to do all that he wants. He lives a spontaneous life, but one night that's always reserved is Wednesday night at the Bridge Tavern. His standing invitation to sit in with Kenneth MacLeod is the highlight of his week.
On the guitar tonight, from Ontario, on the guitar all the way from Ontario tonight is Neil.
Nancy and Steve's decision to help Neil own a home was motivated by a long-term plan. They're well aware that they won't be able to care for him forever, nor do they want to care for him forever. Helping Neil now, while he and they are young, made the transition easier for everyone. What they didn't anticipate were the residual benefits.
But I know that if he was still living under our roof as an adult, there's more tension because for myself as the parent, there's the control thing when they're little and you can do the rules and enforce them and everything, but as an adult, he's got his own way of doing things and thinking about things, and they're not my way. So I think our relationship is better. You know, when he comes over or phones or I go over to his house, there's more of acknowledging him as an adult person, you know, in his own life.
Neil Monaghan embodies the spirit of my life, my choice.
We're all individuals, and I think the more freedom you have to make your own decisions and make your own choices goes a long way to making you happier.
Oh, I think that's, you know, the main contributor to why he's a happy person.
With the support of his family and friends, Neil truly is one of a kind.